Hi, welcome back to the Cuzzy Sound channel. A recent Raw Members exhibition was titled The Return. The idea was to interpret return in whatever creative way you wanted. The theme for the exhibition was inspired by a documentary which showcased the return of beavers to various areas in and around the UK and projects to get them back here into South Yorkshire. Now, I had two short films in the exhibition. One was in the typical Cuzzy Sound style. I looked at short-term return and captured springing out in my own back garden. So the return of life to my garden that comes around every year. And I used a soundtrack of my usual DIY modular synths. So typical Cuzzy Sound style thing. And that one was called Perennial. I'm not going to show that one here on this video. But what I do want to say is that I also have another project running called Convenient Chai, where I'm taking field recordings in and around South Yorkshire and slightly wider afield, and then blending those with ambient synth and various other instruments and producing kind of a sound record of a sound picture, if you like, of my experiences in and around the area where I live. So I decided to do this one because for the second film I looked at a longer period of return, and the subject I chose was the former site of Silverwood Colliery just outside Rotherham in South Yorkshire. So I'll give a bit of history behind that site. So prior to 1900 it was woodland, mostly silver birch, hence the name Silverwood. And there was a few rather small, mostly agricultural villages around the area. In 1900, the first workings to sink the first shaft for Silverwood Colliery took place. So they started to clear quite a large area of the woodland. The first coal was got out of the ground in 1904, and it was in the following year full production was reached. And for around 90 years, Silverwood Colliery provided reliable employment, secure employment, a reasonable income, a reasonable level of, standard of living and prosperity within the region. Fast forward to all the problems with the mine industry in the 1990s, following miners' strike and closing of collieries, and in fact Silverwood became victim to colliery closures in 1994. So it was roughly around 90 years of production. After that, the site started to be cleared again, and a kind of a rewilding project was started. Well, it has taken quite some time. In 2007, the Forestry Commission started planting trees. And as you will see in the short film that follows, the woodland is starting to return again. So the film is called What Once Was Here. Now, it's a tribute to both the miners, Silverwood Colliery, the men who worked there, and especially ones who lost their lives there. There are there is a memorial, which is a kind of a half of a winding wheel from colliery on the site. There's also, in the film, you will spot some other signs that the colliery was there. You can't just fill in a mine. There's going to be buildup of gases and things, so that has to be dealt with. So keep an eye out for that. But also, so What Once Was Here recognises the colliery and its contribution to the community. But also, now that the trees are returning, what once was here also recognises the return of the woodland that once was here. I don't have a YouTube channel for my Convenient Chai project. You can follow it on Instagram, and it's also on Bandcamp. There'll be some links below. So I'm going to show the Convenient Chai movie here. So sit back, make yourself a brew, probably some chai, and enjoy what once was here.